Vacation?
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day that you've blessed us with, Lord. And I thank you so much for our home here in Lynn Haven, Florida, Father. I pray right now, Lord, as in accordance with your word, for all those in authority, Lord, and for the decisions being made here tonight, Lord, that your wisdom and love would prevail in all decisions and actions, Lord. Father God, I thank you that this town's rebuilding strong and that you're right here with us every step of the way since Michael through the pandemic and where we are right now in the climate of this nation. I thank you that love will prevail in this. We are all neighbors in this town. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Going to the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. So thank you all for coming out this evening. It shouldn't be too long of a meeting. I don't have much of a report other than I want to thank Commissioner Aldridge for covering for me at the last commission meeting. I had a family trip planned and the day didn't go very well, and I was struggling trying to get things done I needed to do before I left. So thank you very much, sir. The commissioner on the Mayor Pro Tem's report, the only thing I've got to report to the commission is I had a conversation today with the Assistant Dean of Faculties at Florida State University, and established the St. Andrews Bay St. Joseph's Bay Estuary Program, and part of the grant, it requires that they have to have representation from the different cities. So he contacted me today and asked me if this commission would consider appointing one of us members. It has to be an elected official. He asked if I would serve on it, and I informed him that I would not be running again, and it didn't make sense to appoint me for only a couple of months. So that being said, it's up to the commission if they want to, deal with this now or wait till after the election to deal with it. But if one of y'all are interested to serve, I would sure like to entertain, that motion so we can get it taken care of.
Do it.
Pat, you be willing to do it?
Sure.
Okay. We don't need to, okay. Well, thank you, Pat. So, and would you please pass that information? That's the contact information to Erwin. And I know you know the gentleman, so I'm sure I've done what I told him I would do.
Sure.
So, thank you. So, moving on to the commissioner's report, let's start with Commissioner Tender.
Thank you. Actually, I don't have a whole lot to report this time either. Been just dealing with some code enforcement issues and things of that nature. That's about it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Aldridge.
Actually, Mayor Pro Tem, it's just been pretty run-of-the-mill the last couple of weeks. Been getting some emails, trying to do what we can to keep the city moving forward, and that's all I have for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Perna.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I've had several emails also, and from people that ranging from some parents about recreation and the ever-present backflow preventer issue with several people, and some people asking about permits and whatnot. But I've directed folks quite cordially to our city manager, who continues to put herself in front of people and handle the issues, and I want to thank her for that. With that, I was attending our local Rotary meeting last week, and Garrett and with the Bay County Economic Development Alliance, they are starting the FAME program. It's going with the Gulf Coast. It's a manufacturing co-op, so to speak, and I think it's going to be a big hit in our area. I'm going to be speaking more with them, and I think that I put them in front of city manager, who said they could come and speak with us at our February meeting, and the 9th of February. And I really think that this is something where people who aren't going to go to college, who are going to go to work, manufacturing and other types of business right here in our community, and get employed, have time served while they're training on the job to have a future with that company. I really was taken back by that, and I think it's going to be a great program. So I wanted to speak about it and let y'all know that it's coming forward, it's coming to fruition in our area, and we should embrace it here in our city and try to build around it. We have some great industries here that'll really behoove themselves by having this program in place. So with that, that's all I have to say, and thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. City Manager?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple of updates. We do not have an employee of the month that was just left on there, but we will next month. Next month. I'm going to ask Deputy Finance Director Kiki Roman to come front and see if there are any questions regarding our financial update.
Good evening.
Are you asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one.
Yes, ma'am.
It says here on January 15th, we wrote, I assume it's 2 checks to DAG Architecture for $180,000, $159, and then we wrote $359,000, almost $360, to Florida Architects. The question I have, and probably City Manager can answer this, but the question I have, the last I heard, they were about 60% done with the plans. Is that correct?
They have 60% plans.
Okay, and how much did they quote us up front when we hired them to do this? I mean, it just seems that's $500,000. Do you know how much we approved or?
Estimate, and thinking about Florida Architect, I think it was a little bit over $1 million that we approved them. That's the total design of PD, the chamber, and City Hall. Then they came back, I think it was in November, and asked, and you all approved for the design of and demolition of Old City Hall and the library. So there's some additional costs there, and that would be in a different set of POs. And one of the reasons you will see 2 checks written is because when we get FEMA reimbursements, you can't put it all into one. We actually have to send in, when we get those reimbursements for 428s, we have to send all the invoices in for that particular project, and then all the invoices in for another particular project. So that's the reason you'll see 2 checks. Same thing with DAG. You won't ever see 1 check. You'll see everything that's been done for the design on the ball fields, and then everything that's been done for the design on the sports complex.
So basically, just so I understand, they quoted us a little over $1 million for Florida Architects for city projects, the buildings and such here, but DAG is dealing with just ball fields.
You have DAG that's dealing with ball fields and the sports complex itself. So you have 2 projects going on there.
Thank you.
May I correct one misstatement here? Those are not separate checks. They are separate invoices. So if you look
Separate
at the column
invoices.
that says check number, you will see that they were both on the same check.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything
Thank you,
else?
Kiki.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Other things. As always, I always bring before the City Commission that are written that have to do with Hurricane Michael. I have before me a checks for Tetra Tech, and then I also have a check that were some past invoices due for Crowder Guff in the amount of $68,449.39. These invoices that they sent to us back in November, the city was somewhat in a dispute of whether or not we owe those, but there was some auditing done both on our side, Tetra Tech's side, and their side, and we verified all of these invoices, and that is the amount that is owed. Next, we have a workshop on Thursday, January 28th at 4:30, and this will give you an update on the rebuild of all of the city projects that will include all 3 of our architects that are working fiercely. We know we are somewhat behind some of the projects, but they have been working very hard night and day to get us to a point that we can present to the City Commission and have some public input. So that'll be Thursday at 4:30 here in this building, and ask that you come. And it may be a little crowded in here because of COVID. We try to keep things down. So, but I think it'll be a good time to see where we are in some of those projects itself. And that's all I have.
Thank you, City Manager. City Attorney?
Yeah, we do have an update on the Marina Island, the transfer of the right-of-way that we've been needing for the Rails to Trails project. As you know, there's been some delays for some unknown reason. They have not turned over that deed to the city, which was required. So we have reached out. We've been in communication with their members of Marina Island and their council, basically demanding the deed, and if we don't get it, we'll just have no choice but to file a lawsuit for specific performance to make them deed us that property as they agreed to. After we told them that, they have brought up a list of post-closing items from the closing a few years ago, many of which we looked at, and we think they all have been done. There may be one or two outstanding items. I know they wanted to get a development agreement at one point in time, but they kind of dropped that project, and it's really stuff that they gave up on doing, and they may want to bring it up again. So we told them we'd sit down and talk with them and go over their list, but at the same time, I wanted to get authority from you guys tonight that if we don't get a resolution, we can go ahead and file that lawsuit to get this done, because I know it's time sensitive. I think we want that deed here before the summer. So really, that's my report, and I just want to be sure I've got the consensus and agreement to go forward with the lawsuit if we can't resolve it, quickly.
Yeah, excuse me, I agree with you. It's important that we get Rails to Trails going. This has been a long time coming to get this. Our community's been excited about it since before Hurricane Michael. So I'd make the motion to approve you to go speak with them about this. Do what you got to do.
Second.
Is that motion clear enough for your?
To authorize litigation if necessary.
Authorize litigation if
Okay.
necessary, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And may I ask you, is that against Andrew Bales?
He's one of the members of that group, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Definitely yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 7, public comment. If anybody in the public would like to get up and speak, please raise your hand so I can call on you. Yes, sir.
One of the things I have a question on, I was going through the charter and I was reading about the city attorney. The city attorney acts as a legal advisor. They advise us on legal matters. Is that correct?
So this isn't an answer question. You're allowed to make your comments, so make your comments, please.
All right, so that's the way I understand it. And one of the things that concerned me in the last meeting was we got in a discussion about the 1099 and W-2s. And the thing that concerned me was when asked about it, everyone was pointing at the city attorney, and the question was even asked who is directing this, and they said the city attorney is directing that. And so the way I understand it, the city attorney doesn't direct us on those type of matters. They do advise us on to protect the city, to make sure that we're not doing something illegal, but it's up to us whether we want to go with that advisement or not. So I guess, that's my concern is, are we allowing the city attorney to direct us on how to do something, or are we taking that advice and then making that decision ourselves?
Okay. That's your comment, sir?
That's my comment.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Ann Mahold, and I'm up here to talk about the new business tonight, which is the discussion and approval of the pedestrian sidewalks and footbridge on Petty Drive. So is this a good time to?
You can address it now, or you can address it when the
Okay.
agenda comes up. Either
Well,
way you want
my
to.
is I know the foot thought about for the safety of people that go back and forth to the public shopping center. My concern is that I have the residents that faces Publix. And for, since I've been there, I've been at that residence for 40 years, I have tried to have landscaping across the street to keep me a little bit separate from the public shopping center, as far as trucks coming in and delivering all during the night, lights, noise, things like that. So Miss Gaynor was nice to have Bobby call me. He's, for the Public Works, and he was telling me that the sidewalk would come through to a pedestrian crosswalk and then connect to my sidewalk in my yard. And that bothered me just because I feel like it would be right in my front yard. And so I would like to be able to work with the city to maybe change the direction of the sidewalk or something, but also to keep that hedge there so that my privacy remains. That was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody else have a comment they'd like to make? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Let's see, that would be the consent agenda. Item number 8, minutes of the, I'm sorry, I've got to put my eyes on. There we go. Of the January 12, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Item number 9, approval to appoint Joseph Ashbrook to the Planning Commission Board. Item number 10, approval of the time extension for RV trailers and pods on property or private property for request residents affected by Hurricane Michael in accordance with Ordinance 1071. Approval of the resident incentive application for 701 West 8th Street, and approval of the residential incentive application for 705 West 8th Street. Is there any items that the commission would like removed and added to the agenda?
Are we voting on the approval later on for the 2 people that have requested extensions?
Yes.
So that's separate from this then?
It's part
Yes,
of the
part of it.
consent agenda. It's part of the consent agenda.
Okay. I don't have any comments.
Okay. Is there,
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Can't see over that podium.
I don't see anything.
Okay. Hearing none, city manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perna,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
I'm sorry, I have to say no.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Consent agenda carries. Moving on to item number 13. First reading of ordinance 1109, amending the City of Lynn Haven Charter. City Attorney, I believe you've got a report for us? And
I can,
you need to read
and then this, you want to read it?
You want me to read it
Okay.
first? Sure. An ordinance of the City of Haven, Florida, proposing an amended charter, making the charter gender neutral, removing obsolete and outdated language, updating terms of the office for elected officials, and removing specific reference to transition dates, removing conflicting language on the commissioner compensation to be consistent with the current practice, amending the process, filling vacancies on the commission, clarifying the appointment of the department heads by the city manager, removing the designation of a city treasurer, and providing that such duties shall be performed by the mayor, providing that the canvassing board shall report to the commission consistent with the current practice, directing the supervisor of election place a referendum on the ballot of the next general election, providing ballot language, providing for notice of referendum in accordance with the law, providing for codification upon passage at referendum, and providing an immediately effective date.
This item requires no action, but because it's such a significant thing for the city of Lynn Haven to adjust the charter in any circumstance, I want to make sure the public has a chance to voice their concerns or opinions if they've got any. So any public commentary on this item? city manager.
Right, and I just, you guys have read your packets, and I've talked to you all about it, but like we've been talking about the last couple of months, any charter amendments need to be approved at a referendum. Supervisor of Elections has a deadline of February 12th to get an ordinance to him, so that's why we're looking at the first reading tonight, and we'll come back and get it advertised and have another final hearing on at the February 9th meeting. But again, there's no major shifts in power or in the government. This was really to clean it up and to get rid of some obsolete language and to help us move forward so we don't have these issues with the vacancies and other things that we've run across over the last year. So again, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Would this be the appropriate time to bring up things that we could discuss as a commission, like if things for the charter, like term limits? I don't know how you feel about term limits. I happen to be all in favor of term limits. Otherwise, I think we have a lot of professional politicians out there. So that's one issue that I would like to address or see if anybody else agrees with me. I noticed in the document here somewhere, you crossed out the word clerk, and our city manager is also our deputy clerk. So are you proposing that she's no longer the clerk, or we don't have one, or what?
No, that was to clean up the last significant, the last charter amendment was Ordinance 711, probably 20 years ago, and in that charter you had a whole section for the city manager and you had a section for city manager / clerk. And so what they did 20 years ago was clean that up, and so it's just city manager. However, our city manager, as you know, also acts as the clerk, and so what we did is that was really the one instance that it was left over from 20 years ago. And to clarify and clean that up moving forward, we went ahead and added a specific duty in Section 26K, where the city manager is to act as a city clerk when required by law. In case there's any sort of statute or something that comes out that says, oh, the city clerk needs to do this, that way we're covered. And so that was clean up an omission from 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the other one that I wanted to also ask the commission to look at is where you want to change to read that the mayor will be responsible for signing all checks that the city manager writes. And I don't know if we want to lock somebody down that tight, and if anybody would entertain the verbiage of if the mayor is not available or out of, I mean, I don't mean next door, it's not available, but I mean next out of town or something like that, that possibly a commissioner could sign those checks.
Right.
I don't know if you want to entertain it, but it was a thought I had.
And I know we discussed. I don't mean never. We did discuss that, and in those mayor duty section, that last sentence does say, in the absence or disability of the mayor, other members of the commission shall select some. So basically, like you have a mayor pro tem or somebody else could do it. If you wanted a little bit broader, we could go broader on that. But you do already have that. Like I said, in the absence of the mayor, another member of the commission can perform that duty.
Okay. And my last thing that I also wanted to bring up to the commission is if you would entertain any kind of verbiage put in this charter saying that every 4 years, every 5 years, I think 4 makes more sense because then we have people that have been working together and have been here that long, that every 4 years we address our charter with our residents. Like I proposed before, appoint a group of residents, and I don't mean just 2 or 3, 5, 10, 15, whatever. Have them bring before the commission their thoughts and suggestions. Doesn't mean we have to adopt any of them, but I think having it set to happen every so many years seems to make more sense to me than just to leave it hanging out there. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am.
And that's something, I've seen 10 years, 15 years. You don't normally see them that frequently as 4, but that'd be something. If we do want to add that to this charter, I would need some direction tonight because I would need to add it to the title that we just read. And same thing with term limits. So if either one of those are a majority or consensus on, I would need to know that this evening.
Yeah, my personal opinion about term limits is it happens every 4 years. You know, the commission, or the public decides whether they want to keep that person in there or not.
Yeah.
And if they don't want them, then they term them out with a vote.
One issue you see is with smaller sized cities, under 25,000 people, it is harder to get qualified candidates. So as you grow and get larger, I think it goes to that where it makes more sense to look at term limits. But as it is now, it does get hard sometimes to fill vacancies and to get people to run. So that's something to consider.
Thank you.
Any other commission have anything else? Any other commissioner wants to have a comment? I'm going to go back to the public again because I want to make sure that everybody knows that this is very important that we get public commentary on this. So if after hearing, yes, sir, please.
So I know this is something that was long overdue. I think it's been like 30 years since this has been reviewed. And I think this is great that we're finally doing this. And I do agree that there should be a timeline every so many years that this does get reviewed so that we don't get stuck in a corner like we did. For instance, when we had to try to fill in for the mayor, we had 10 days to try to figure that out, and that pushed us in a corner. And hopefully that'll, redoing this charter will solve that. But the other thing I would like to see was a appointment of a committee that goes and they go over it and they go line by line, and I think that's the closest you can get where you can get inputs from the residents, and then they can present it to the commission and make their recommendations, and then of course it would be reviewed by the city attorney. So that's to see added to it. So that's my input.
All right. Thank you, sir. I believe I saw Mr. Messer. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Dane Messick. I live over on Vermont and West 12th. I didn't have any intentions at all of coming to the platform today, but when you brought up the charter, it rung a bell. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's one part of that charter that needs to really be looked at, and that's the part that says resident. If I'm running for office and I'm a Lynn Haven resident, paying the water bill, paying the light bill, you're allowing me, according to the charter, to go live in another house over in Vernon or Bonifay. You need to define resident. In my opinion, the lawyers, you need to look at it. It needs to be changed to a permanent living resident that you live in Lynn Haven. We had an incident, the gentleman that you took his place, Rodney Friend, done that. He lived in 2 different places, called the one in Mort Highland as a living, and then moved and bought a house in unincorporated Bay County. I caught it. I brought it to their attention in the meeting one day, and of course the lawyer defended the commissioner over that. That's the only thing that I've got against the charter is that one word, resident. It has to be more defined than what it is. A living resident, not living in 2 different places. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could I speak?
Yes, sir, of
real
course.
quick? I understand the concerns, Commissioner Tender, and I do with the public as well. The only thing that concerns me, and I think it probably concerns Mr. Obo's time frame that we're looking at, due to the supervisor of elections cutoff date, it really put us in a time crunch. So, Kevin, you can correct me if I say something wrong here, but it was more of a cleaning up of pronouns to get into the 21st century, some of the cleaning up of the names of titles, things like that. But if we're going to actually look at a comprehensive change, I don't think that needs to be made tonight, that decision. I think that's too big. That's like changing the Constitution. We need to sit down and really hash this thing out. I'm not opposed to committees or whatever when we get to that point, but I would say let's move it. Let's punt on the big stuff, on the meaty stuff, until possibly the next election where we have some time to digest what we're doing. And that's just my comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner would like to comment? Anybody else in the public? All right. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No.
I definitely agree Messick, the residence thing was a real issue with Rodney Friend, and I had many conversations with the city manager at the time, and I was actually told, well, get a group of residents together and have them sue him. But it won't happen before he's gone anyway. And it was laughed at and it was joked about. But I had residents calling me almost on a daily basis. I had envelopes this thick with documentation that he didn't have any water and electric on at the one house, that he had weeds growing up around his Sea-Doos that were parked in the front yard. I even got videotapes from the neighbors when he would ride up on his bike and get his mail out of the mailbox and then go home. So it's a huge issue, I think, and I don't know if we're just going to rush this through to get it on the ballot, then somebody's going to probably end up spending a lot of money telling people to vote no. So then it's just a waste of time. It's like putting a Band-Aid on somebody who needs 50 stitches. It's kind of a waste of time to do it that quickly just for the sake of it. I don't know what it would cost to host a separate referendum. I don't know what that costs to print those ballots for 22,000, but we only have about 2,000 that vote. So I don't even know if they have to print for the entire population or for what the average voter is. But it is something that's so important. It's our foundation. It's our foundation. So I don't know how you all feel about it, but I don't think it's something that we should just rush through to get a few words changed. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to make my comment real quick, and then I'll open it back up. My philosophy is fix what you can. I mean, at this point, we cannot fix the charter to the extent that we're talking and get it on the referendum. So it makes sense to correct what you can, get that fixed, and then move forward. And if this commission, after the election, decides they want a special election to overhaul the entire charter, then that can be done. But why not take advantage of the vehicle that we have now to fix what we can now? But again, that's my opinion. If there's no motion to change this, there's no action required, so we're going to move on to the next agenda item, unless there's anybody in the public has anything else they'd like to comment on. Okay, hearing nothing, we're going to move on to the next agenda item then. Let's see, agenda item number 14. Let's see, discussion and a possible approval to accept the pedestrian crossing easement located off of Petty Drive at the northeast corner of Bel Air Estates from Real Sub LLC. We were talking about that earlier. But Attorney, take over.
Right. This item will go hand in hand with item 15, which I believe the Public Works Director will handle that. But this is, as we discussed, the city has been looking at improving pedestrian access or creating a new pedestrian access from Bel Air, basically across a large drainage easement onto the public's property. So the vast majority of that is on city right-of-way or city easement, but there's going to be the last little section will actually be on Publix's or the public shopping center land to connect that boundary with basically the corner of whatever the last space is, the last tenant space. And because of that, and because the city is going to presumably spend some funds to make some striping and some markings and a ramp, I think, we would need an easement from Publix. So they are agreeable, and they have it. Publix has it right now. So to have this project ready, we wanted approval from the commission that once that signed easement comes in from Publix, that we have the authority to accept it and make sure it gets recorded. So it's nothing that we'll have to sign or do, but we're waiting on Publix. But we will need to vote to accept that easement when it arrives, so it can get recorded, and then we can go on to the next item. So all we need for this item is approval to accept the easement from Publix.
All right, thank you. The commission got any questions for the attorney?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to see, is the lady here that... Okay. I have a question for the homeowner that's concerned about this, and I just wanted to ask you, is it...
Ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't have public commentary until we have a vote, so I don't think it's appropriate for you to call somebody up.
Okay.
But, I mean, you're welcome to ask questions. The attorney.
Okay, so after we voted on it, I can ask her a
Well,
question?
after we have a motion, you know, I mean.
Oh, okay,
second, then we have-
before we vote on it. Okay, thank you.
We have a motion?
I'll second the motion, but I do want to hear from Miss Ann.
Sure.
I do too.
Yes, ma'am. So we have a motion and a second. Now then, commentary, please, yes, go ahead.
If she could step back up here.
And if I was wrong in that in that ruling, I apologize. I'm just trying to make sure we follow. And I wasn't trying to keep you quiet, ma'am.
No offense taken, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. My main question to you is,
Welcome.
my main question is to you, is it your safety that you're worried about? Are you worried? Tell us what you're worried about by having people walking through here.
Okay, well, what I'm worried about is that, according to Bobby, part of the pedestrian crosswalk across Petty Drive would end up, a sidewalk would be put through my yard, which is part of it's a city easement, but it would connect to my sidewalk, which is right in my front yard. And so, you know, I foresee, I don't mind, you know, people walk on our sidewalk all the time. That's fine. But it's having the open, like where those doors are, looking straight into the front of UPS, right across the ditch. Right now, there's a big crepe myrtle tree there and some ligustrum bushes that block the cars that are driving towards our house. They have to turn left or right before they get to the ditch of Publix. So that blocks all that light, you know. And so what I'm worried about is the footbridge, the sidewalk from the across to my sidewalk. And if it comes straight across, it would come straight into my front yard.
Mm-hmm. Do you have people that walk down to that stop sign and then take a right and walk right there? Do you have that much foot traffic?
There are people, when they go to Little Caesars or Publix, they walk on our sidewalk and then they go across the street and then they go down along the easement there and they go around the corner where all those stop signs are and they walk either to Little Caesars or they go to Publix. And occasionally they don't go down the ditch very often or cut across because it's really deep.
Yeah.
You know, they've cleaned it out.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
any other questions or?
So it's mainly from, if I'm reading between the lines, it's mainly the vegetation that you're wanting to stay in place that you're concerned about because it's blocking light, noise, et cetera, from the shopping center.
Giving us privacy.
Yeah, I understand.
That's what it's doing.
Yes,
ma'am.
From a big shopping center.
So if we could work out, I
Does
guess,
Bobby
That's what Miss.
know he has
Yeah.
to take the trees, or? I see Bobby back there. Do you have to take the trees and this vegetation out of that? I mean, is it the only way?
No, one of her biggest concerns is there was a huge hedge through there and trees, and they were torn out by the storm. So the actual sidewalk's only like 6 feet wide, so we can shift it around not to take any additional shrubs out. But she did have a beautiful hedge with big cedars, but the storm just took them all out, so there's not a lot there now. I mean, we can avoid what little
What's
bit will
there?
impact.
Bobby, is it possible we could piggyback on this and maybe add some landscaping to it? Maybe
Yes,
try
I
to
told her
plant
we
the
know-
hedge back so that it'll
We
grow?
can sure look at it, but, you know, we haven't been replacing trees throughout the city, and if we start, there's no way we could put those bigger trees back. They were huge.
Yeah.
Cedar trees and ligustrums. Yeah, it is pretty open right now.
Yeah.
I have another.
Just for clarification for everybody, I'm the one that brought this project to the city. I had a couple of city residents come to me and were concerned about people walking down the road and coming around those stop signs and having to walk through the Publix parking lot. In particular, they were worried about somebody getting run over or hit by a car. So that's where this whole process started, about putting this crosswalk in to try to alleviate the people from having to walk down the road. And I want to thank Bobby for working diligently trying to get this price original prices came in, they were, there was no way this was going to get built for what our original estimates came back at. So I appreciate everybody that worked on this, trying to get the numbers down to where it could be affordable. So thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
How much are we paying for this?
40,000.
I believe it's $45,000.
Yeah.
And I think the original estimate came in at 100 and something.
115.
Yeah. So he got it from 115 down to 45.
And that's using our procurement process and doing a lot of it in-house. And Panhandle Engineering, they've been doing the updates to the plans for free, so thank him for that.
Well, that's good. The only concern I would have is that we're setting a precedent. That's my only concern. We're setting a precedence. Whereas we could go behind your restaurant at the other end and put a walk back to the folks that live behind you. That's my only concern. If it will set a precedence that we're trying to, connect the two between businesses and. Before you know it, we'll have a walk behind Walmart there. I think they walk through there anyway. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other comments of the commission? Bobby, thank you very much, sir. Yes, any comments? We have a motion in a second. So is there any comments with the public?
Ms. Ann wants.
I believe I'll see you. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Ann.
So my concern, and maybe Bobby could correct me if I'm wrong, was that if this project goes through, that sidewalk, as the pedestrian is painted across the street, that it comes and it connects to my sidewalk. And that's what, it's like another sidewalk in my yard connecting to the sidewalk that we paid for. He didn't put in that sidewalk. So, and yes, the part of the hedge is totally gone, but there still is some hedge left, and that is the part I'm trying to protect, is a little bit that's still there. So that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, I think we heard Bobby say he could do it without doing that.
Yeah, he said he could shift it around.
I'd just like to say on what Ms. Tinder said and alluded to that I met with city manager and I asked her if I needed to abstain from voting on this because it was so close to my business. And I was told that this was in planning long before I became a commissioner.
Oh, I've been working on this for well over, yeah. It's been an on and off project. I can't remember how long ago the citizen came to me, but it's been several.
And in the name of, and I think we're doing this in the name of public safety in general. So.
Yeah.
And I agree, Commissioner Perno. We want to take care of the citizens, obviously, make sure they're. I like your idea of piggybacking, Mayor Pro Tem. Maybe throwing some stuff in there that on top of the RFQ. So.
Okay. I believe we had one more comment. Yes, ma'am.
My concern is, hi, I'm Venus Weaver. My concern is I live back in Bel Air. I love our police department, but something has to be done about that three-way stop. There are plenty of youth who walk to Publix because their parents may not be able to get there. So I don't want to infringe on anybody else's rights, but it's dangerous around that curve, and I don't know if you've ever been there at about 6 o'clock.
It's dangerous for cars, let alone people.
Cars alone, and some kid might get hit while these people who don't adhere to that sign, I don't know if you need to put a big Vegas sign up there or something that says, traffic from the highway does not stop. And you have it backed up.
That's
then
the
you're going
biggest
to have the
thing.
highway backed up. So I figured the more people back in this area that could walk, which I live there, and I would walk to Publix versus take 20 minutes. And I have parked on that easement by our house and walked to Publix because it is a nightmare. I work at the post office, and you could see it. Somebody is going to get hurt. Then what's the city going to do? So all I want is a safe place, and then there's plenty of kids who work at Publix. They hire at 14. So you're stopping parents who have to drive them there. Hey, walk to Publix. My sons did it. They walked to Publix. But if you're going around that curve, and then you've got, like I said, that pizza place, and then you've got the bank, people are turning into the bank there, it's a nightmare. And all I'm asking is a safe place for our kids and the elderly. down and get exercise. There's so many people that would benefit from it. But I don't want to infringe on anyone's home, so I'm thinking that maybe that could be made where it doesn't infringe on someone's home. But we have a beautiful community back there. I just want to keep our young kids safe because we do have young kids moving in that neighborhood now. It's not all old people like me. My kids are grown, but you know, we've got to work together to get a better, safe environment. And working at Publix to get paid weekly, they're out of the streets. It's a win-win for the community and those children, teaching them responsibility. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Is anybody else? Yes, Arlene.
I'm very familiar with those horrible stop signs. There must be a half dozen of them. And people, it's a very dicey situation. It's just the factor of how things came together. But I was wondering if perhaps the walkway could not in that lady's yard. Now that part I'm not familiar with. I'm wondering if there's some way that the walkway wouldn't have to end up in her front yard.
Thank you, ma'am. I will, is the, Chris Foran, you still here, sir? Chris, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate all the work you've done on this project.
Yes, sir.
There's been a question about whether we can shift that bridge left or right, or I guess that would be east or west, to get it to where it's not quite in front of Miss Ann's house. Is that a possibility?
We could do that. I'd have to look at the sidewalk that's there and just check it out and see.
Okay. All right. So we got a motion and a second. I'm hesitant to ask for a call on a vote for that without maybe an adjustment to the amendment to shift the bridge if possible. Would that be something you could be considered?
A motion.
If you don't mind.
And again, this is just for accepting the easement.
True. True.
So
That
the only
you're
part
right. You're
we're
right.
talking about right here is I don't think we're going to change anything that's on the public's side.
Right.
Right. Only thing we're talking about maybe is adjusting on the city right-of-way side.
Well, he's talking about shifting the bridge down a little ways, so you may have to put in some extra sidewalk to go down to Publix crosswalk, to their sidewalk, so that you line up with their sidewalk.
Right. Okay. Well, again, I mean, that's just a matter of switching out the exhibit. So we have the form of the easement. We can still get approval to accept the easement.
So within
and then we can, on
motion
item
within
15,
the
we can talk about
within
the rest of
easement
it.
All right.
to do
So
everything we can.
And just to clarify, you're talking about shifting it to the east,
Yeah.
towards
A mo-
77?
To amend the motion, say within the
Whichever
easement,
you think is better. I mean, whichever is
whatever we can do
least
to
cost,
buy the
you know,
homeowner.
but also
the most affected
effectively
homeowner,
helps.
you know?
And you don't want to shift it too far away from the sidewalk at Publix, because that's the whole purpose, is to keep them out of the roads as much as possible.
Sure.
I think we've actually got some more hands up now, so thank you, Chris. Yes, sir.
Wasn't necessarily to shift it to the east, it's more to keep it to the west, closer to the wall, the better.
Shifting
and
towards-
maybe to the left of where the sidewalk lines up in front of UPS and stuff like that. But to the right would would
More
just
problem.
ruin the hedges and everything else.
Okay.
To the left, closer off the wall, it would leave the hedges and stuff, because there's still utility stuff back there, like there's phone stuff back there that, AT&T and all these guys got to get back there, and, I mean, it's not, we don't object to the bridge itself. We just don't like the way it's
Sure,
coming
sure.
into our yard.
Sure.
That's the only hassle we have with it.
Sure.
Because it is a safety feature that probably benefit the neighborhood, because that corner down there is really dangerous.
Yes, sir.
And if this thing, and people come barreling around that corner, sometimes I think it's like the only turn in the world they can do at 40 miles an hour. So it wouldn't hurt to have that marked too, or maybe even a speed bump or two, and coming into that corner. So another thought.
Thank you. So, I mean, would the commission entertain tabling this and see if we can bring it back to the next commission meeting and see if we can't get it adjusted?
Isn't the motion just to accept an easement, though, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah, but there's a potential that easement, if it's already set up as a certain piece of property, may have to be shifted, correct?
That's what it sounds like. I was thinking maybe on the public side it would not, but according to Chris, it may, so.
So would you advise, Mr. Attorney, that I table this?
If I could, the easement Well, we won't change the easement on Publix because of where it lands on their sidewalk.
We need it.
It lands at the stop sign intersection, so that easement is pretty
Yeah, I
well
wouldn't think
fixed.
so, yeah.
Now, changing the direction of the bridge or the sidewalk is possible, but.
And that's all on right away.
Okay, all right, so then we're okay
So
with this.
The ideal spot
Just
on
amend the
their
motion to
easement is
stay
where we
within the
have it
easement,
laid.
Well,
and
we-
do everything we can.
My understanding is we don't need to amend the motion on the easement side because this is on the public side, correct? So if there's no more discussion, I'm going to call the question. City Manager, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes, if I understand what he just said. Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes, okay, thank you. Now then, moving on to the bigger question. Discussion and possible approval to use mobility impact fees to construct the pedestrian crosswalk off Petty Drive at the northeast corner of Bel Air Estates in the public shopping center complex. This is the actual construction of the walkway. So this is the item that's going to be the question of whether we need to accept it as is or accept it pending the bridge being moved, or if y'all want to table the motion until they come back with the big bridge shifted. So it's a decision what the commission would like to do.
I'd like to ask a question. I'm envisioning what everybody's been talking about, and I just want to make sure that I understand. There's a white wall there that says Bel Air Estates on it, down by, further down.
Right.
And we're talking about are we talking about putting this bridge over that waterway, if you will, right next to that wall? Is that what we're talking about doing?
I'm not familiar with what the wall is. I'm not seeing it on the diagram.
Is the wall still there?
It's not, it's near the wall. It's probably
I don't see
30,
it on the
40
diagram.
feet off of the wall.
On the other side of it or this side of it?
It's on
77?
the Highway 77 side of it. That
Oh.
wall, the sign, it's basically a sign is what it is.
Right.
It'll be right before you get to
a
that
little
sign as you go in. It'll be about 30 feet off that sign.
Still be in front of it, it looks like, you know,
Right.
where that curve is.
I personally would like to table it, like you said, until we can get some actual things to look at instead of, right now it's kind of up in the air. We might put,
Have a diagram.
we might put vegetation, we might not, we might leave a tree, we might not. We might build a bridge.
Well, we're hoping we're building a bridge, but that's
Right.
The question of whether or not by moving the bridge, correct?
yes, sir.
And if we modify it, it could cost a little more if we have to run a longer sidewalk up around the corner and make it where it doesn't cross the street. That's the other possibility.
I make the motion then that we will table this until the first meeting in February. That will give us a little bit of time to look at the plans, review the engineering, and see whether or not we can do this without getting on people's property. So, if I,
Well, I mean, it's not on their property.
well,
Sidewalk's
you know what I'm
on the
saying?
right-of-way.
Right, I understand, yes. And that would be my motion, so.
Okay.
I would second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Before I ask for discussion, I just want a couple of things. I get what you're saying, and I want to make sure we make this work for you, but at the same token, I want to make sure this works for the citizens of Bel Air.
Right.
So, and I've said this more than once, thank you for the work on this. I pushed you hard on this, and I know I've browbeat you trying to get these prices down, so I appreciate it very, very much.
All right.
Is there any discussion with the commission? No? Any discussion with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Reluctantly, yes. All right, moving on to the next agenda item. Let's see. Item 16, discussion and possible approval of a water and sewer assessment plan. Oh, you're already up here. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. This asset management plans are a comprehensive plan of what's actually in the ground. It's a combination of capital improvement projects that we've always worked towards, but it's as part of the state revolving fund loan agreement, we're able to save some points on by adopting these two plans. Now, that doesn't commit us to funding all this. All this is saying, we see this plan, this is what we have in the ground right now. We can use it for budgeting, we can use it for figuring out our rates. It's a tool that allows staff to move forward with bringing our city further along in their water and sewer projects.
Thank you, sir. Commission, have any questions? So, what's the...
Motion to approve.
all right, so we
Second.
have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with the commission? Any discussion with the public? Hearing none, City Manager, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Parno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes. Moving on to number 7, agenda. Item number 17, adjournment. Thank you all very much for coming out. Y'all have a wonderful evening.